Big dogs, we need to talk about YCS Bologna. I said it right. There are so many things that happen over the course of the event. You need to be up to date on these things or you will fall behind in the dust. But don't worry, your boy is going to help you out and give you all the information you need to know. I think that it's really important to talk about the current state of Yu-Gi-Oh! And I'm going to be asking you guys some questions that I need you to answer. This is how we come together and find solutions to our problems. Let's jump on in. Okay, big dog, before I talk about YCS Bologna, I actually want to talk about something that's really, really important and near and dear to my heart. Growing up as a child, I never had shit, but now that I'm older and can make a change, I'm going to do it. So throughout this entire month, if you go to duelingguard.com and use the code CaliEffect when you purchase something, everything that I would get goes straight to Toys for Tots. That way, big dog, you can get something that you need and still help out somebody in need. But let's go ahead and talk about YCS Bologna. This is an interesting event. And the reason why I say that it's interesting is because European events are different. The European events go the extra mile to keep the viewer engaged. Whether they have your favorite content creators showing off how to play a particular strategy or playing an older format, they always have something interesting in between rounds to keep you watching. Even their Twitter is engaged. They actually ask you what feature matches you want to see, so you actually can dictate what you see on stream. The only drawback is that if you're in America, it's normally overnight when you're trying to get some sleep. But who am I kidding? You're not sleeping. But here's where we actually have the problem with European streams. For American streams, we actually get blog coverages. And I never thought that blog coverages would be important until now. The American vlogs actually gives us a rich amount of information. It gives us the information on topping decks, even more feature matches, and sometimes even deck lists. That's something that is sorely lacking for Europe. And it shows because I only have one official graphic from Konami. It's the top 64 bracket. Of course, we'll talk about that a little bit later, but I think it brings an interesting question. Is Yu-Gi-Oh! Actually healthy and balanced right now? There are some cards that I may think that are perfectly fair and balanced in the card game that you may not. And I think that it's really important to have these conversations because even if we have different opinions, we can always come together and find a solution that can be beneficial for everyone. YCS Bologna had 2,488 players, just another stat that I couldn't get from the official site. I have to find it on the internet. But through watching your streams and inside that event, there were some cards that really stuck out. Some cards that I would consider the most powerful. Some of the popular cards that I noticed was Kashtira Finra. This card reminds me of Cyber Dragon back in the day. It's a card that you can summon to your side of the field to be able to apply pressure to your opponent. But unlike Cyber Dragon, it's a card that you can start off first with and actually be able to use to disrupt. You can kind of consider it like a modern day Cyber Dragon, power creep to keep up with Yu-Gi-Oh! I personally think when you have monsters like Kashtira Finra into the format, a card that everybody should be prepared for, it actually makes things a little bit easier to deck build, giving you a baseline on things that you know you need to be able to stop. But it's actually a card that's really good at going second, and a card that can just be a counter to SP Little Knight, which is a card that is over $100 still. Absolutely hate that this card is so expensive, and I wish that budget players got access to this card way sooner. But it is a defining point in the format. Fortunately enough, this card is not ridiculously busted, as cards like Kashtira Finra can easily check it. And even right there, you even have a balance with price disparity. While SP Little Knight may be up to a $100 Yu-Gi-Oh! Card, Kashtira Finra is relatively easier to get and can help counter that card for budget players. Droll and Logbird was another popular card that I saw played, and to be honest, I never thought I'd say this, but it was a pretty healthy card. I think while some players may hate Droll and Logbird, we have to acknowledge cards like Droll and Logbird and Nibiru the Primal Being help keep combo decks at bay. Without cards like that, combo decks would probably reign supreme. And even most of the floodgate text that players have been using is still not too bad. What I noticed is that players over the course of the format has been playing Gizmic Yuka, the Festive Fox. If they happen to go against a deck like Unchained, they'll summon the Fire Barrier statue to be able to stop them. That's not necessarily good against a lot of Yu-Gi-Oh! Strategies. And the last card in Yu-Gi-Oh! I saw played a lot is actually going to spark a big debate, a question that I need you to help me solve. Super Polymerization is one of the better cards in the game. Is this a card that should be banned? I personally don't think so. Super Polymerization falls in the same line as cards like Droll and Logbird, but it's a card that's built to be able to punish certain particular Yu-Gi-Oh! Strategies because no one wants to deal with a 20 negate board. Overall, I think that Super Polymerization is a fair and healthy Yu-Gi-Oh! Card, but I want you guys to let me know what do you think about Super Polymerization and some of these other things. But moving forward to the top 64 bracket of YCS Bologna, this is the only bracket that Konami Europe gave us. There is 14 Rescue Aids, 10 Tier Limits, 9 Labyrinth, 6 Unchained, 4 Fire King, 4 Centurion, 4 Purely, 2 Vanquish Soul, 2 Makanko, 2 Chimera, 1 Despia, 1 Bestial Runic, 1 Bestial Dragon, 1 Diabel Infernal Knight, 1 Kashtira, 1 Marine Test, and 1 Rika. As you can see, even with some of those oppressive Yu-Gi-Oh cards, the format is incredibly diverse. Literally, my guy, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 different Yu-Gi-Oh decks that topped. Surely if these cards were prevalent and there was only like 1 or 2 decks topping, we would definitely have to address those, but I think that it's really hard to make a case that these cards are uberly broken when there are so many decks that are being allowed to play because of it. And to actually prove it, we could take a look at Zek Shah's Fire King deck list. This is actually a deck that just came out this Friday. As you can see, this deck does use some of the cards that we talked about. Catch Terra Finra is incredibly good against matchups like Unchained, and Droll Logbird does help keep those combo decks at bay. Unfortunately for the Fire King deck, that Diabell Star engine does seem mandatory for the deck. Every list that I could research that actually had placings at a tournament did run that package. It's also kind of ironic because a lot of the pro players said that Fire King wasn't ready just yet, and taking up 4 slots inside of top 64 is obviously a boss move because you know the deck is only going to get stronger. But the cool thing about this Yu-Gi-Oh format is that you don't have to play the newest thing. You can actually still play some of the old things and have a lot of success. Taking a look at Henry Bancroft's Tier Limit deck, that's right, Tier Limit is still pretty good. Though I would personally say that Tier Limit is on a backslide, it's more so because Tier Limit is a deck that if players prepare for, the deck won't do as well. And in this event, players can't prepare for it. And the crazy thing about it is that even though players were prepared, it still was the second most represented deck in top 64. Now again, we do have that European problem with us not having the graphs from top 32 and above, but we do know that it is a healthy Yu-Gi-Oh format when some of those decks in the lower numbers can still advance to the top 32. And we can easily prove this by looking at Antonio Pineda's Vanquish Soul deck. This is a deck that has been constantly topping since it dropped inside of its original set. And even in this format, it is a strategy that proves it can still be a good contending Yu-Gi-Oh deck. The deck is playing the Gizmo Yuka tech that we were talking about a little bit earlier, but it also doubles down as an Earth target for some of your Vanquish Soul monster effects. I'd also like to say that Konami has done a way better job than we would like to give them credit when it comes to introducing competitive decks. Previously, we would only be able to get competitive decks throughout the main set, but now Konami is finding innovative ways to be able to give us a deck one way or another. We just talked about how Fire King was a structure deck that came out on Friday. Well, Centurion was actually a strategy that didn't come out too long ago and does have a top in itself. Let's go ahead and take a look at Manuel Bracco's deck. I'm not sure if people are going to consider this a combo deck, but if it is considered a combo deck, it's one that actually plays by different rules. It's a deck that's not necessarily hit by Droll and Logbird or Nibiru really hard and can still be really successful. It also does have that little bit of unfairness with Hot Red Dragon Archfiend Calamity, a characteristic that is normally in the higher tier decks, but unlike some of the other decks that may have used that card, it actually gives you chances to be able to stop it and give you a little bit more fair interactions. Now, should Hot Red Calamity be banned? The answer is probably so, but this is actually one of the very few Yu-Gi-Oh strategies that can play the Calamity Lock that has actually done well at a high level event. I think that this format is a testament on how Konami can actually make a ban list as well as give us new product to be able to dictate a format that is fun, healthy, and still can make them money. But they don't do everything right. One of the biggest things that I noticed in the stream is that a player would make a particular mistake and people would flood the comments saying that that person was cheating. And the reason why I put the parentheses over the words cheating is because the players were not cheating. They just made mistakes. Guys, there are over 10,000 cards in the Yu-Gi-Oh card game, and sometimes remembering every little bit of text is incredibly hard. As somebody that has been a player, a judge, and a TO, you are bound to make a mistake. But here we have the problem. I actually know some incredible judges, and you won't believe the pressure that they have to go through sitting on that stage watching people duel. But one thing that I would find incredibly frustrating from a viewer's perspective is a judge catching a mistake 3 turns later. Come on, my guy, it's 3 of y'all. At least that's what I would be saying if I was uninformed. Judges have an incredible amount of a task, and often they're understaffed. This is a Konami problem. To be honest with you guys, I can go on and on about this particular problem, but Konami has absolutely failed to properly train, educate, and give judges the space to be able to flourish. And because of the lack of resources, it will show on the highest stage when everyone is watching. That is a huge problem. Again, I think that this might be a topic for a whole different video, and I'm gonna get in contact with as many judges as possible to get their perspectives as well. Of course, anonymously, because you know how Konami be. Because Konami Europe didn't get us a lot of information, it is up to the players to be able to figure out what topped and everything in between. Yu-Gi-Oh! Pro Deck.com has actually done an excellent job at being able to give us as much information as possible, and I'll be sure to give you guys a link because I'm pretty sure they're going to be updating the list to more deck lists. But the best part about Yu-Gi-Oh! Is that we've seen combo control in mid-range decks top YCS Bologna and actually do it with great results. The opportunities for you to be able to win with a deck seems endless. Taking a look at the winner Joshua Smith's Runic Bisteel deck profile, it's actually kind of crazy. It just goes to show in this format, it seems less about the deck and more about the player and knowing the interactions with the deck that can take you incredibly far. And I really want to hear what you guys have to say about this. Let me know down below in the comment section, what is your opinion on this particular format and how do you think that it will impact the upcoming ban list if we even get one? I personally think while there are some problematic cards, and I'll be talking about that in a later video, this isn't as bad as some of the other formats, but that could be just me experiencing PTSD. As always, big dog, I hope you are having an amazing day, and be sure to check out these other videos so I can catch you on the next one.